to try to extract it, but if I want to make a mutation, this is completely legal. All right, follow that? So I'm going to take a single loop. I'm not pushing the button. This is going now. So y'all hang on. Pass it through each one of those eyes. All right? Follow that? Now, again, you're doing all that blindly, okay? This stuff is all going to be about health. Then run your rod in there, thread it through both eyes, and pull those chains out to you. You're going to pull those limbs as far or with as much hand tension as you can, straighten them out, and you're going to hold that tension by seating your chain in that notch. I'll tell you something that I learned that works even better than the way he's doing it, is I will actually put a half hitch or go ahead and fixate the length of that chain around that fetlock, just like we were going to pull it. Okay? And the reason I say that is imagine that, I wish I had this is my rod. Got some dust bunnies. This is my rod. Right now we're asking to fix our elbows to it like so. But what's going to happen if I just hook the chains on that end, the distal limbs are still going to have this. So if I put one single half hitch and then hook it, now the legs will become one. So I take two legs, hook them to the pole, fixate it around the elbows, and now I have one thing. And all I have to do is worry about my head and moving independently. So you can put a snare around the head, hold on to it, or do the bowling ball, whatever you want to do to kind of keep it rolling. But does that make sense? Rather than just having this deal, one little quick half hitch and I line everything up. That always works better for me. Dr. Carson didn't teach us that way. But that always worked better for me when I was trying to rotate one of these things. Let's see what's next. All right, so let me back up here. I just want to make one point. So once you have this calf like that, and I again would do my distal limbs all lined up, see that handle that he's got his hand in? It is square like that or rectangle like that for a reason. It was designed to put a 2x4 in it. You need to keep about 2 or 3 foot piece of 2x4 laying around, or if you're on the farm, there's one there. Okay, I promise. Because you think about if I had a 90 to 100 pound calf in there, and you were trying to twist this thing with this little handle, no, this thing's gonna look like a helicopter, airplane propeller sticking out the backside of this cow. You and somebody may have to get on it and twist this thing. Follow that logic there? So it really does take a lot of energy and effort to do this. If it didn't, we wouldn't need all these tools. We just reach in there and spin it. If you don't have these tools, you really are left to trying to do it manually. And if you have to try to do it manually, the best way to do it is to take the forelimbs and crisscross them, okay? And you try to twist them in a pretzel so that you can make those two legs become one, and you just keep twisting that calf and trying to make it roll, okay? So that is very challenging to do that. So this detorsion rod works really, really well. You can use it if that calf is coming all longitudinal. So Dr. Carson's showing you here that you can put it up above those stifles. Same thing, rather than just leaving that chain free, I'd probably put a half hitch somewhere down around that fetlock to keep those legs in straight alignment with that detorsion rod, and then we go to twisting that calf around. This is another detorsion rod. I won't spend much time on it, but this was that instrument I showed you that it was a single shaft with an eye on each end, just one single loop. This is designed to use one chain. So you guys see that Dr. Carson has made his single loop right here. He would slide that above the elbow or a stifle, and then he would run that chain through his eye, around the other limb, back through the eye, and down the length. There's the second eye, this is the perfect size to put a broom handle through. So it's that designed to put literally a rake or a broom handle through it. The thing I don't like about this one, this end works great. The thing I really don't like about this one is there is no place to fixate the chain. So it's kind of aggravating in what do I do with the free end of this chain to keep all the tension, okay? So the other one had, I told you, these notches right here that you seat your hooks in. That's really, really helpful. And the other one just has that single round hole for you to put that broom end up tying your chain to something, and I know times you try to tie a chain around something, that doesn't always work out for you. All right, so y'all with me on the torsion rods? Yes?
I have a question for when you were talking about crossing over the limbs. Is that just caused by you turning, or are you saying caused with the chain?
No, I'm talking about if you didn't have a detorsion rod, the way that you would manually try to twist that calf without the assistance of a rod is to take those limbs and just twist them on themselves so that they kind of become one unit. And then I have two handles each foot, and I'm trying to twist that calf without breaking the cannonball, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it doesn't sound like the greatest idea in the world, it's not. That's a fair question. One other thing about a detorsion rod. I want you guys to follow me on this. Cranial longitudinal, dorsosacral. We can even say both forelimbs are extended. Head and neck retained to the dam's left. So if that calf's coming out the chute, he's looking all the way over here to his right. Does that make sense? So I got both feet I can get to, or even maybe I had to correct the feet, but I've got both feet. I'm never going to get that calf up unless I get that head going straight. If it's a foal, forget it. They got a long neck, wry neck. Wry neck is a term in which that neck is actually fixed in that position. Just because they're turned looking in the opposite direction does not mean they have a wry neck, okay? Wry neck is a fixed cervical spine in a deviated fashion. So that's another improper term that sometimes gets thrown into obstetrics. So we just have a head and neck that is flexed and retained, okay? I have had some calves, especially if they're alive, if they're one of those 100-pound calves, it's literally impossible for me with just one arm to get that neck straightened out and just to pull that head back around. So I'm just going to tell you this as a trick. So you can try to repulse it and, do all the things in the world, and if you just can't do it, okay? If you can't do it, you can't do it manually. What I have done is I have put a detorsion rod on those calf's legs, and I actually rotated him. So I torsed him into a dorso-ilial position because his head came up. I grabbed it, straightened him out, and then turned him back and pulled him out. So if the head's way over here and he wants to keep looking that way, I'll turn the whole thing till he looks at me, straighten it out, and then turn the calf back to dorsosacral, and then pull it. So just a little tip there. Does that make sense? That's kind of a weird deal, but that happened to me one time, and I almost now don't fight necks, flex necks anymore. I just put the detorsion rod on them, turn them, pops up, straighten it out, turn them back, and out they come. Question in the back? Yes.
With all these manipulations, like, are these animals typically alive?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of
That's the
times?
goal.
So, like, does it have to happen in the fast, like, is it quick? It don't feel like it's gonna be something fast that's gonna happen, you know what I mean? Like,
You're gonna get quicker, it's like anything else. It's not gonna be quick the first time you try it. But, ideally, yes, because if it's not alive, then I'm not gonna mess around and try to get it out intact. I'm just gonna start removing things that are in my way. So that's what we're about to do, is talk about a petotomy. So these are all efforts in which, yes, you're trying to extract and give this, farmer a live calf. If this was, deceased and had a severe head and neck, I just cut it off, pull it out, okay? So yeah, we're still trying to get that calf in labor and get a live calf out, is what we're doing right now. Good question.
Can you explain what time that thing again?
Yeah, so this calf really is in cranial longitudinal and dorsosacral fashion, but it has a severely flexed neck, okay? So when you reach in there, all you feel is the side of this calf's neck. And literally, he is looking backwards, okay? And it is oftentimes very difficult to get that head straightened out, all right? So, because you can't many times get all the way down around the muzzle because it's looking so far in the opposite direction. And then once you do, now you've increased the pressure because your arm is between that calf and the uterine wall. So I put the detorsion rod on, and I actually start to towards that calf instead of that. And many times these calves, not only are they looking to the side, it's almost always looking down as well, because they've been pushed so hard that they start doing this, okay? And so I turn that calf until this head and neck that's over here rolls up right on dorsum. Now I can get, and I have a lot more room when it's fashioned in that direction. I straighten that neck out, but now that calf's laying on its side, just roll it back to where he started, but I've got the head and neck extended now. So I use the detour, so I torque the calf to mutate and correct the flexed head and neck, untowards it, pulled it out. Yes?
Do you worry about the point of the cow and assembly happening, especially in the, like, can we turn and so much of the terrible?
I mean, potentially, and that's always, you know, a potential. It's nothing that I'm ever gonna worry about. There's one point in time when I worry about the umbilicus, and we'll talk about that today as well. Mike?
I think I'm just confused about like oxygenation of the calf, like during all this. What is your time frame where you need to be concerned about, like, is it taking too long to get out, like, especially if their head is turned so far?
Yeah. So, part of that depends on, it depends. Okay, great question, it depends. And what does it depend on? One, how long have they actually noted her being labor? When did this actually start, and, you know, when did they get there? The other part of it is, usually as I am assessing that cow, and I'm palpating vaginally and trying to feel the presentation, position, and posture, I start asking people very routine questions. And one of those routine questions is, who is more valuable, the calf or the dam? And based on that answer, it starts setting those boundaries and parameters for me. If this calf is more valuable, I'm gonna settle in and do everything I can do to get this calf out of here. If they tell me that this dam is, you know, way more valuable, we just let her go through a pregnancy, because she's been, you know, on an embryo flush program for the past 3 years, and we're giving her ovaries a break. And we're, you know, just trying to get, you know, wanted to get the calf out of her. We don't, doesn't matter, we got 40 embryos frozen. I'm not gonna muck around too very long. I'm gonna protect her uterus, and I'm not gonna be thinking about going and doing a C-section, you know, on her. I'm gonna try to sacrifice that calf. And we'll talk about that more, as we move towards the economy. Any other questions? All right. So, calf jack. So when we now need to put traction, so we've made our mutations, we've fixed the improper presentation, position, or posture, and now we need to get it out. And so typically we would put those chains on above and below the fetlock, and if I have handles, I'm going to try to manually pull that calf out. Okay? I say I used to. Not much anymore. I'm pretty quick to go to the calf jack these days. No S on my chest. I'm just gonna get it out so I can hurry up and go home. I don't think I look like a hero if I have a calf jack. So, here's what we're talking about. These are your manual calf jacks. These are handles. There are different types of them. People prefer different ones, whatever. I will tell you that those D-ring handles on the bottom right there, those really hurt your hands. They're very narrow based. There are a set of D-rings that actually are rubber coated. They don't hurt nearly as bad. If I had D-ring handles, I would want them to be the rubber coated ones. The bigger ones up there just tend to not dig into your hand so much. So different strokes for different folks, doesn't matter. And that little notch right there, that's the same notch that's on that detorsion rod. That's where it's gonna be perfect size just to catch one of the links in that chain. All right, this is what you call a calf jack, and there are lots of versions out there. This is the El Cheapo. Most rednecks have this device pretty handy. This is not just a come along bought at the hardware store. This really is a device that uses a same come along that you can buy at Walmart or the hardware store for $25. And it's fashioned to this pole, okay? Most of the time, this is a single pole mechanism. The newer models, the newer models almost always is a two-piece pole, simply because it fits in your truck better. Okay, sometimes it's hard to find a place to put a 6-foot long pole, okay, so it's broken into two pieces that'll fit together right here. So, this is one independent piece, this is your butt plate or buttress, okay? So it is gonna be designed to go just below her pelvis, and you see that it has this loop, it's black on black, it's hard to see, but there's a loop, so you're gonna throw that loop up and over her tail, so it's kinda hanging there off of her back while you're getting all set up. We're gonna take and release our come along. The other type of devices, so this is a fixed lever that is pulling the calf back to the lever. The other devices are called pole climbers. There's different styles, 2 or 3 different styles, and those individuals are actually, it's a specialized pole, so you take the ratcheting device, it actually moves along the shaft. We would start with it up here, and we would be, as we ratchet our handle, it starts moving along that pole away from the cow, thus bringing the calf with it. So 2 major different styles there. One is a fixed lever that's going to have some kind of cable or something that pulls the calf back to the lever. The other one is a movable lever that climbs the pole. So they're oftentimes called pole climbers. And there's a Hercules model. One is, it doesn't matter. You'll see them. It's not worth talking about all the different styles. Just understand there's 2 different models here. So what would happen here is that I would need to hook these chains up to my little hook on this fixed lever mechanism, and we would start ratcheting. We would take up as much tension as we can, okay? Those legs would be coming straight from the pelvis of that cow in a straight line. That wire's going to be really tight. Chains are going to be sticking out, and it would just come straight from here to here. Remember, we said that we don't want that calf to come flying out like Superman. It needs to do a swan dive. So we don't want to see how hard and how much tension, and oh, I'm going to get this thing out of here. That's not a good idea. Once you've applied pretty good tension, we are then going to put a downward motion on our device. So we're going to now apply, the only extraction pressure we should be doing is just with our own strength, pushing that device down to the ground, okay? So that would be that same motion now of asking that calf to kind of do a swan dive over the brim of the pelvis. Once I get that calf to move, when I would come back up and into this position, and I would take up all the slack. Go down, come up, take out the slack. So I'm not using the power of this device to actually extract the calf. I'm just using it as a lever in fulcrum. I'm just using physics, okay? But I'm not trying to overpower this calf. You're going to hurt the cow or you're going to hurt the calf if you have intentions of just extracting this calf out with the power of this device. So you want to use your own strength, push down, then I'm going to come up, and I'm going to take the tension and the slack out of it. So it's very tempting to stand on this thing and just keep ratcheting. I don't advise that because usually everything's fairly slippery when you're involved in this kind of activity, and there's a lot of tension, and if you slip off of that, it is going to break your face. I mean, it is going to hurt, and if you have a broken jaw, you're not going to be able to finish the job. So don't stand on that, okay? It's very tempting. Don't do it. All right, any questions about that? Yes.
So you know how in human medicine, a lot of times when the doctor's pulling, they wait for contractions to come with it? Is this the same, similar case or not?
That's a very good question. So, for me, I'm gonna say no. okay? Because we didn't talk about this, I'm glad you reminded me of that, I'm very glad. Most of the time, 99% of the time, I need this cow to be standing up. This is way easier if she's standing up, okay? Now this hurts, and this is a lot of pressure, okay? If I'm using her as the weight in which I'm torquing against, you know, it's not very nice, you know, but she's gonna have the tendency to wanna lay down, especially when that cat gets fully engaged in that pelvis, okay? Remember, she's pushing because of Ferguson's reflex. All that pressure on the cervix, all that increased vaginal pressure stimulates her to keep contracting. So to do a proper job, I need her to not contract on me, okay? And the only way to do that is with a caudal epidural, okay? So I'm going to get out of my truck, I'm gonna quickly assess this cow, I'm gonna see, you know, what I'm up against, and she's gonna push when I'm palpating her and stuff, and then once I say, okay, I need to do this, this, or that, I'm quickly gonna give her a caudal epidural, and nowadays, I'm going to administer a tocolytic as well. Okay, anybody find any information on tocolytics? So, I got epinephrine is one, yes indeed. Come again? Magnesium sulfate, what's magnesium sulfate? Epsom salt. Magnesium sulfate and isopropyl alcohol was the preferred favorite in human medicine for years. It literally is dissolving Epsom salt in pure 200 proof grain alcohol in an IV bag, dripped IV, to quiet the uterus. I mean, it is vodka in an IV bag with a bunch of Epsom salt rocks dissolved in it, IV drip. Sounds great, right? Another question is, you want to be a drunk fetus or a dead fetus? So, they don't do that anymore, but it was very common. There are people your generation that your mom or mom's friends may have received that treatment, but they don't do that anymore. Anybody find any others? There may be some effect, but not by the same effect that not by the mechanism of which we're creating this relaxation. So, what are some drugs that we use? What's the most common drug that we use that is an alpha agonist? Xylazine. So it's causing contraction of smooth muscles, right? So you need to use caution when you are sedating pregnant females. You're going to initiate some smooth muscle contraction in that uterus, okay? So if you have to use repeated and continued excessive dosages of alpha-2 agonist to, sedate this crazy pregnant mare to deal with, you could be asking to turn that uterus on far more than you intended by trying to get her to cool out, okay?
Yep. This is a question. When you give the cow xylazine, and I've helped pull them where the calf is out, can you give them like the reversal too?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you definitely get the yoga. So we have to use caution. I'm not afraid to sedate a pregnant horse, pregnant mare with, a single dose. I try not to use butomidine because it's such an intense alpha-2 agonist. I try to just use xylazine if I have to sedate her. If I have to go to the means of C-section, I really don't want to have any alpha-2 agonists on board because that uterus will continue to contract. It will not relax. It makes it very challenging not to extract the fetus, but to actually close your incision because it is involuting faster than you can sew. And I'm not kidding. The very first C-section I ever did was my boss called me and said, hey, meet me at Old Man Hardy's place, and like July, 9 o'clock in the morning. So I'm, he's like, I need some help on this cow. I'm all excited. I get out there and he's over there, he's gloved in. This cow is tied to a pole and she's kind of, walking in a circle around the pole and he's walking with her, trying to finish up a C-section. And he said, hey, get some gloves on and get in here. And I get over there and he turned and said, all right, he said, I've started, a U-track at the back end, said, sew your uterus up and close that side up. I gotta get back to the office. He said, did you bring that blanket? I said, yeah. I said, why? He goes, well, I didn't want to get your truck dirty. And so he throws the blanket over the seat of my truck and he went back to the clinic and he left me standing there with needle drivers and first, knot tied up in the abdomen of this cow. I did not ever finish showing the uterus because it was involuting just very quickly. It was leaving and going back to the pelvic canal, and then she laid down, and it's gone. And so I didn't sew it up. I mean, I couldn't. And anywho, closed her side, cow did fine. And it wasn't later until, I kind of figured out that we got to quit giving these cows that were doing C-sections xylazine. That was the problem. It made it very challenging to actually close that uterus up. So I try to avoid those alpha 2s. But if I want to create relaxation, okay, I'm probably going to use epinephrine in the boat, okay? If there are other drugs, okay? Any of our bronchodilators, tract, beta, relax. So clenbuterol does a really good job of relaxing the uterus. Banned in food animals. Don't do that for a cow. They usually use in people terbutaline, which is another bronchodilator, nowadays. What now? Yeah, albuterol, clenbuterol, any of those beta agonists, bronchodilators. Then what else? You actually can cause in the mare buscopan, buscopan, potato. It will relax. Completely different mechanism. I did give a mare, Vinnie Pullman, last summer on the farm to pull a foal. It worked fantastically well. I gave her an oral dose of clenbuterol as soon as I got on the farm. She had a severe dystocia, cranial, longitudinal, dorsosacral, head, both forelimbs flexed and retained. So all you had was where the cervical spine joined the thorax looking at you. This mare had absolutely beat herself up all night long trying to spit that foal out. You're not going to be able to pull a foal in a standing mare. She's never going to quit contracting like that cow will. When you give her that epidural and you take away, and the cow may push on you a little bit every now and then, but she's not going to have those programmatic, classic uterine contractions like we see in people, and even in the bitch and in the mare, they will just continue to have contractions. As long as the cow's not uncomfortable, if you can eliminate that pelvic pain, she'll stop pushing, which makes it easy for us to do all these standing manipulations. If you're going to try to extract the foal, you're probably going to have to put that mare completely down on the ground under general anesthesia and put her in what we call Trendelenburg position. I know what Trendelenburg is. On your back feet up in the air, heads down on the ground. So if you have to do that on a farm, we needed, John Deere tractor with a nice front end loader and some chains or straps. And so luckily their neighbor was willing to come over and knock the mare on the ground, picked her up by her back end. By doing that, all of that GI pressure rolls towards her head. You now have enough room to manipulate that foal. I had given her clenbuterol, the uterus relaxed, I corrected all the manipulations, and I pulled the foal back in. Mare suffered some cervical damage. They're supposed to bring me that mare last week to assess her cervix. Didn't see them, but anyway, that was not so long, so I'm done doing that. I'm not doing that. was asking about though, and I told y'all yesterday, if you had to make that version where you had to choose to pick the rear end or bring this thing cranial longitudinal, I would choose to roll that thing into caudal longitudinal because I don't have to worry about the head and neck. The only problem, and you're right, it puts much less, so those cows that are having a calf backward, they do not tend to get the shoulders, head, neck, and shoulders all engaged in the pelvic canal, so they don't push. So many times people will call you and freaking out, and they'll tell you, it's backwards, she can't have it. No, it's backwards, both back feet are hanging out, she just won't push because there's no pelvic pressure. And many times they'll lay down and squirt the thing out. And if you see one with back feet, and you know it's back feet because the bottom of the hooves are pointing, up in the air, hurry up and get your chains on before she has it. You're not gonna be able to charge them, so I always act like it's a big deal. I'm like, hurry, get her to shoot. And they're like, oh, people are stressing out. And then I'll put the chains on, we'll just pull it real quick. So, what are you so worried about? Boy, I'm gonna be able to charge you. The thing's gonna fall out, I just left her alone. So, yes, I would, you're absolutely right, but here's the problem. If it turns into, where you, have a situation of, say, that caudal longitudinal calf becoming hip locked, okay? Meaning once that pelvis gets engaged in her pelvis, James, because we're coming backwards, we are much more likely to engage that umbilicus against her pelvis in a caudal presentation as opposed to a cranial presentation. If I'm in a cranial presentation and I engage that umbilicus against the floor of her pelvis, well, I already have to have both forelimbs, most of the shoulders, and the head and neck out. Guess what? I got oxygen out there. If I'm backwards, I'm still underwater. Okay, and now you've pinched my umbilicus, you've stimulated the respiratory response, and all I've got is snot and spit. I just have amnion still. So you can lose your calf, although it's easier, it becomes potentially, we gotta get this done and not have the time that we might have if we had a head exteriorized and that calf potentially could take a breath. Follow me on that? So, very good questions. Does that satisfy your umbilical concerns? Good, because that's a very good point. It's a very good point. But typically, just not a huge big deal when you have that calf going backwards. So, I want to do an epidural. I really like to use tocolytics. That uterus really, really relaxes. If I'm afraid to give Mare epinephrine, I'm afraid to give, because it's not like, it's not a little bit. It takes quite a bit of epinephrine. There's no standardized dose. I'll just tell you my dosage. If I'm giving cows epinephrine, I like to use 10 cc's. All right? And I used to always give it IM. I thought it worked really great, but I did know that it probably took about 10 minutes to really get maximum effect. But that makes sense. You give it IM, it's going to take a minute to be picked up and circulated. So I just got in the habit of, okay, I got a dystocia, here's what I got. Give her a dose of epinephrine, start to do my caudal epidural. By the time I'm done with epidural, the epinephrine is all on board. Go do my manipulations, extract the calf. When I was doing my residency, all the internal medicine, board certified internal medicine people, they were giving an IV. I was like, well, man, if medicine folks aren't scared to give it IV, I shouldn't be scared to give it IV. And of course, it worked really fast, but now doing dystocias with 5 or 6 senior students drastically increased my extraction time, and I realized that it only lasted for about 15 minutes if you gave it IV. So I actually went back to giving it IM because I probably, I know I did plenty of dystocias that it took me easily 30, maybe 40 minutes to get that calf out, and the uterus was still relaxed. And I have been in the situation where I tried to give more doses, and I do think that it kind of got refractory. If you had to repeat a dose, I don't think it was ever as effective. So my dosage is 10 cc's per cow for any cows weighing 1,000 pounds or more. If they weighed 1,000 pounds, less than 1,000 pounds, I just gave them like a cc per 100 pounds. made me a little bit nervous if you had that 600 or 700 pound heifer come in there that needed, a calf pulled out of her to get her with 10 cc's of epinephrine. Never had any of them have any cardiovascular effects, but I'm not gonna push the envelope either. Alright?
So if you do that prototype for and give it,
I don't do a dissociation now without it. It's just, it's not worth it. It makes everything exponentially harder. It really, really does. And I just, you should pray and hope that you have to throw away every bottle of epinephrine that you ever buy as a practitioner. Because if you're rolling through epinephrine on a regular basis, you need to reevaluate your practice mechanisms, okay? We don't give out epinephrine. That stuff is dying if we're burning through epinephrine. So it became a great way for me to use all the expired epinephrine that we've been throwing away. So anybody, we have epinephrine expired, put it in my truck, I used it for bovine dystocias. Even here, I'm probably one of the only people that has multiple bottles of epinephrine on their truck, and they're all expired, but it works. So anyway, yeah, so we don't like to have to use it unless I'm doing bovine dystocia. Good question. Any other questions? Those are all good questions. All right, well, let's just kind of, get nearly as far as I want to. Let's just kind of introduce, phlebotomy, and then we'll call it quits. I want to tell you guys, maybe let's just talk about more some of the, principles and the mindset. Product activation failed. That's failing pretty fast. All right, so let's just talk for one quick second. Because you guys asked a lot of questions about how to know when to, start this and how long can I go. And so I do think it's really important to have a very clear understanding of the client's impression of the desired outcome, okay? And who they for in this scenario. Because if there's a, $5,000 embryo bull calf inside of this, cow that they picked up for $300 at the sale barn last year, they're not gonna want you to waste much time trying to pull that calf out. They're going to expect you to go to a C-section pretty quick. And they don't really care if the cow comes home or not. They just don't. They can go back to the stockyard and get another $300 cow and put another $5,000 embryo there. I do have moral objections to some of those mechanisms. Although I understand the monetary differences, they are still a living being and creature. She didn't ask to be bought fine having another worthless calf on her own, okay? She didn't ask to be put in that scenario. And I'm saying that because I've lived through all these experiences, and I started refusing to do work for show calf people that full intentions of me euthanizing the cow and cutting the calf out. Or cutting the calf out and just euthanize the cow. Don't even sew her up, you can keep her, don't want her. I'm not okay with that. You get to choose if you want to do that or not, but that client may pay all your bills. And you may need that client. If that's the way y'all like to do it, seriously, that for me, I just had more value to that cow as a living creature than to keep doing that as a normal business practice, okay? I don't have any problems sacrificing one or the other in an individual situation where a decision has to be made. But if that decision, by them learning that I will meet their desire in that one decision, turns into a normal practice, I'm out. Same on these bulldog puppies. We started having people come from hundreds of miles away for us to do C-sections in the middle of the night. Fine. We had a policy that we weren't going to do any emergency C-sections on breeder bitches unless we had a valid patient-client relationship. Because I don't have any obligation. The law tells me that if you're not my client, I don't have to meet your emergency needs. Okay, and you don't even live in my area, so that's not my responsibility. You got an emergency clinic in your own area that's closer to me. So we would tell them they have to come, we have to examine, the animal, and I'm just gonna tell you what I did. They're all proud of these dogs, right? They're really happy. So, very early in our relationship, I just straight up asked him, what are you getting for a pup? $1,500. $1,500 pup. So that's good, that's good. And they already know how many she's got. They've already got the money budgeted, they know what they're gonna spend it on. Okay, they're making a living off of these dogs. I'll meet you. Okay? Those are decisions you guys have to make. I have definitely done a fetotomy on a calf that was alive and euthanized that calf in utero because it was better for the dam. Okay? Made a decision, presented it to the owner, they made that decision, everybody understood what was going on. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get your cow back to her, I'm gonna sacrifice this calf. He's already taken a hit. Okay, he's already taken a hit. He's not gonna have a calf to raise or sell, but he wants to now say, I just cow back. It is better for me to sacrifice that calf than to do a C-section and open up her insides to the outside world and run the risk of peritonitis and then death. Okay, so I have on numerous occasions euthanized that calf and dismembered it, and practice for average Joe Blows that had 25 cows in one bull. Most of the time, they don't have the means to put in $500, $600, $700 on a bovine C-section. So if you are going to do that, I'm not judging you. I just recommend to you, don't make that a common practice. Let that be a case-by-case situation, okay? And if you're going to, euthanize that calf, you need to, or do a fetotomy on a calf that you believe is alive. You need to make sure that your first cut will allow that calf to expire before you start doing anything else. And so the first thing you need to do, you can't give them euthanol. That calf is still connected to the dam. You can't do any of that stuff. You simply are going to have to either remove the head, or you are going to have to, if it's in a cranial presentation, my first cut is going to be amputation of the head, decapitation. If it is a caudal presentation, I am going to try to disconnect that umbilicus, and then I'm going to wait, and I'm going to let that calf expire in utero, and then I'm going to finish the procedure. So I may get them just drop that calf off with me, or drop that cow off with me. I'm going to cut the umbilicus while the calf is still, in utero, and then we're going to let it expire, and then bring it back in a little bit, and then start your procedure. I know that's not what you guys thought we were going to talk about today, but it's a reality. It's a reality. And so I want you guys to kind of have the heads up. You're going to meet some ruthless folks out there, and they're in it for the money. We have a right to serve our clients, but I think we have a right to protect our patients as well. And so there's a lot of crazy ethical dilemmas you can get put in. Yeah.
What's your time frame for that? Like, how much time do you give when you cut?
I haven't ever had to disrupt the umbilicus. Because if it's backwards, I've never not been able to correct it with a couple, and get it to come on, where I couldn't get it.
How concerned are you about actually being able to play with it?
So we'll talk about that. We'll pick up that on Monday, and we'll talk about all those cuts that